everyone. Welcome to our hometown publisher interviews. Today, we're interviewing Cecile Wehrman, the publisher of the Tioga Tribune and the Journal, both hosted at journaltrib.com. Welcome, Cecile. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
So the reason I wanted to get you on the program today is mainly to talk about your donation program, what you've been doing with donations since the COVID outbreak, just some of the details on how you're promoting it on the site. So can you just kind of tell us about how you've approached that in the last couple weeks here?
Sure. Well, of course, when things really started breaking early March, our state actually kind of made the big leap to close a lot of things around the middle of March. At that point, we felt like it was appropriate to drop our paywall and make our information available to everyone at no charge. Okay. I even was thinking at one point that we might lose our print capabilities because of, like if it got into the plant and then, our plant got shut down, and there's just, right, multiple reasons why it made sense to have it wide open, because there was, a lot of stuff going on. We were pushing out breaking news probably at least once a day, which is not something that we normally do. And we wanted to, be sure that everybody was getting the information. So that was around the time that I was like, well, I know we're losing revenue doing it this way, but, we should be asking for donations, because at the right same time, it's like this thing just hit like a ton of bricks in the middle of March, both the extra news, the need to get information out, and also a complete turning off of revenue. Like it was right, like a spigot turning off, so that like all the advertising we sold in February that should have been paid for, if people hadn't paid their bill by the first week in March, it didn't get paid, literally. So, everybody just stopped everything. And so we had an immediate cash flow issue. As most newspapers are, you're pretty tight to begin with. And when you suddenly go without a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks without revenue, you've got a serious right problem. So, I mean, it was evident immediately that we needed to do something. So I guess right, when you have to, that's when you innovate sometimes.
You find a way. Yeah. That's really good background. I think so many newspapers could relate to that whole situation, the pressure to take it down, or maybe just the feeling of an obligation to take the paywall down, but then all of a sudden asking for donations that they've never asked for before makes a lot more sense. And I think publishers or readers understand the need. So let's dig into some of the details of how this works. Now, currently the paywall is back up, but we're still collecting donations, and that's what a lot of publishers are doing at this point also. So let's just walk through. I'm signed in, but if I were to click on this button, so we could set up a button for any paper like this, support local journalism. And what I really like that you do here is this goes to the donate page, but you call out and remind them you can just subscribe instead and become a recurring supporter, and then get the benefit of the access. So you're reminding them that this is an option here. But then tell me a little bit about this form. It's pretty simple, right? Just a couple things to fill in.
Right. And we wanted to give value. So, and actually I probably right need to update this now that the paywall's up, because people aren't reading for free. But at the time that this went up, a couple of weeks ago, we were basically saying, hey, if you're getting something out of our news, show us a little, appreciation right here, but also to right appeal to current subscribers. And we suggested right a donation equal to their annual subscription fee, which is $50 a year. And amazingly, right, the most frequent donation that we have received is $100. So okay, that's pretty cool. And yes, sure, it's a limited number of people that are willing to do that. But if they care enough to do it, they're carrying
Right.
twice as much as we asked them to. So
Right.
that's pretty neat.
Right. That is amazing. Yeah. So first step, ask for something. Second step, put a recommended value on there. I really like that. And then people kind of say, okay, that's the expectation. I'm going to exceed the expectation. They just
Yeah.
multiply it by 2. And so without having that suggestion, what do they multiply it by? They're pulling a number out of thin air. So that's really good. That is a nugget to take away from this video for sure. Maybe we can get that in the newsletter, call that out, Terry. Okay. And then they put in their credit card. It's a one-time charge. One thing I wanted to mention here that I saw at other papers, have you ever thought about, just kind of going off of what you said, where you have current subscribers and this is a way for them to give more than to just subscribe. Have you thought about gift subscriptions at all?
We did try gift subscriptions
I
back
thought
at
you
Christmas
did.
time,
Okay.
and it just,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody did it. But
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I had asked for some information, and I believe that we figured out how we would do it. I'm applying for a grant, which will essentially be a gift subscription for every family of school children in our coverage area, which will be about 900 families. And
That's awesome.
If we get that grant, we will be using a sort of a gift button for them to claim those subscriptions. But we don't know yet if we're going to get it. So
I see. Okay, that's a really good idea. That's kind of what gave us the idea, I think, to talk about schools and school being out at this time in one of our emails. But what is that? Is that a local program or like?
Well, so there is a the former publisher, the Andrews family, that was the publishing family here for 90 some years. They now have a memorial giving program that is aimed at nonprofits. But as they can't just, of course, newspapers are close to their heart, but they can't just give me money to run the business and keep it from failing. They have to have either an educational component, or because of COVID-19, there's an emergency aspect to where we could receive money from that foundation one of two ways: either with a sponsoring agency that is a nonprofit, which is easy enough to accomplish, or with this emergency situation related to COVID, they can grant to for-profit groups. So this is just an idea I came up with originally as a way of growing our subscription base, because as I was making some other applications to our sales tax boards and looking for ways to shore up our business, regardless of this crisis, is that, we're losing the greatest generation. They're dwindling very quickly. And those are the people that have been subscribing to our papers for the last 60 years. I mean, they're lifelong subscribers, and they're now, in their late 80s, and they are leaving us, unfortunately. We have to replace those people. And so we have to get newspapers into the hands of younger people and convince them of our value. And so that idea just grew out of, okay, well, where are we going to make up these numbers? We're going to get them from a new greatest generation.
Right. I love it. Yeah. And just getting the school involved and working, I don't know. Well, when we'll see when the grant comes through, how that all works out. But I mean, I can just picture, approaching the school, and it almost seems like that this could be a part of their curriculum, like local history, local current events. I mean, this is great stuff, and it's not part of the traditional, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. school curriculum, like local history studies. But I mean, all the rules are being thrown out the window. They have time to fill. They need content. The
and
newspaper
it's kind of funny how
is endless content.
It's kind of funny how this all occurred. The need for revenue, the need to grow subscription, and COVID all happened to coincide with our annual spring 8-week giveaway to local schools, with either an NNA serial story that we've run for many, many, many years. Every spring for 8 weeks, we give papers free to all of our schools. And it comes with a chapter story or activity that they can do as a class if they choose to.
Awesome.
And so that also factored into this idea of, okay, well, let's make that go year round, and then we suddenly had distance learning and kids needing things to do. So the first 3 weeks our kids were out of school were the last 3 weeks of our regular serial. So we made sure that, and actually, you know what, now that I think about it, that was one of the biggest reasons we took the paywall down. It's so funny how when you don't journal these things, you forget. Yeah, we had to actually, because we had about 500 kids who were expecting to read the last chapters of that serial. And that the only way they were going to get them, it wasn't that we couldn't deliver the papers, but that the schools couldn't deliver the papers to them.
Sure.
So I had forgotten that.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh man, well, with so much going on, it's hard to remember all these details. We're just reacting and then move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
It's time. Jeez. Very cool. So that's all really interesting. I like that a lot. It's a good, solid plan to approach schools with. So we'll definitely get something out of that. Terry, you had a question? You want to jump in on that, or is it something else?
No, I had a question for Cecile about donations. I just wondered what was going through your mind? How difficult was it for you to actually take the step and ask for donations? And what are some results you've seen?
It's interesting. I didn't have to think twice about asking for help. When you like I said before, when you see the spigot literally turn off and you realize that how am I going to make payroll? Like, oh my God, like we don't have enough money to even, in 2 weeks we're going to be out of money type of thing. It was just necessity. You can't be proud, but by the same token, I feel like this is a non-aggressive way of asking people for money. I've had some, in addition to the money that's come from the online, we have had just as much come in checks. So the fact that, and there's been reporting and stories and columns that, have been supportive of and letting people know, hey, we're hurting, we need help. So, it all kind of worked together. But we've gotten just as many checks offline as we have online. And I've gotten a few calls from people. One of them was from a gal that does some freelance writing for us a couple times a year. And she wanted to send me a check for $1,500. And I'm like, Sydney, no.
Wow.
I'm like, I cannot accept that from you. I mean, not that we, couldn't use the help, but, she just felt so strongly. And so she, I have that money in my back pocket if I need it. And it was very, very kind of her, but it was hard. When you put it into those human terms, it's really hard to accept money from a friend, and I had another guy call and this hasn't actually happened, but he talked about giving me a sizable donation. And I didn't discourage him, but these are our friends and neighbors. These are people that we have long-term relationships with. And I guess that's good and bad. I mean, I think about if somebody in a small town, if somebody has cancer or they have a fire, their house burns down or whatever, this community regularly comes to people's aid, and we can have a silent auction raise $20,000 in an evening easily.
Wow. Yeah.
So people do those kinds of things, but I've never been the recipient of that before.
Right.
So it is interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you are a big part of the story. Newspapers, news, local news is a part of this story. I mean, everyone sort of is in a way, but I feel like local news, the impact on it and the importance of it at this time has never been so clear. So it's a really unique opportunity, I guess, in a way to kind of get your story out there. But I'm just looking here. We got a letter to the editor. I mean, you're writing about. So this is about like what happened with the grant, I guess. But I just see there's a lot of articles on here about. Well, you mentioned one earlier. Someone sending in some praise, just unsolicited, like a letter to the editor, that kind of thing coming in. But I'm also seeing you writing about, like you just said, you put out editorial, just talking about the situation and how serious it is for the paper.
In fact, the Fargo Forum, which is the biggest paper in our state, saw my editorial, and a reporter called me and said, "Wow," he said, "you're really being really airing your dirty laundry, so to speak, of really laying it out there in dollars and cents of what this is costing you." And he was kind of surprised that I would do that. And I guess, I just happen to be someone who isn't real uptight about talking about finances, but the reason is because I don't see myself as an owner as much as I do a steward of 100-plus-year-old institution. And like I told him, if that institution that serves the community is in trouble, I need to let people know about it. This isn't just my business. This is something that belongs to everyone, and they need to know that we're struggling. So in that way, it's a little easier to remove myself. If the journal goes bankrupt, it's not just Cecile Wehrman whose bank account goes to zero. It's a news desert. And when you realize that that's the outcome, I just feel like, well, yeah, it's going to help me, but that's the least of the importance of what's going on here.
Right. Yes, I mean, that's a point even before all this. I read somewhere recently, some statistic, just a ridiculously high percentage of the country does not realize the financial problems facing the local news industry. They don't either think about it, or they just don't realize that it's there. Now everyone's kind of more aware of it. I think it's just more on people's minds. So
well, it's interesting the way this played out. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was so disheartened, and I think the donations were really spurred. It wasn't just the button on the webpage, but we were getting a few donations before then. But when we went out to the community, to these economic development funds, and said, "Hey, here's a program," and I pitched them the idea of the subscriptions for the schools, like I talked about, as well as a $15,000 ad credit program, where we weren't just asking them to hand us $15,000, but we were saying we want to offer an equivalent amount of advertising to businesses who can't afford to advertise right now. So it's like, to me, it was a no-brainer, because you had double the benefit. It paid our bills and helped keep the newspaper going. But in exchange for that, we were extending that credit to the advertisers to help them get messages out about how their operations have changed, or what operations they still are, what products they still have to offer. And this was a pitch to an economic development fund. Now, they don't normally give grants to private businesses. And so it was not well received in Crosby, which is where, our company is based. This is my, so to speak, hometown. And the reception to that grant was very chilly. In fact, almost to the point of rudeness. I mean, I've never been so horrified in my life to how that was handled.
Jeez.
It was
I hate to see this.
It was cold. Yeah. It was really cold. And I don't know. I mean, I kind of think like all over the country, I think the newspapers are kind of like the canary in the coal mine, because we were the first ones to start chirping that, hey, there's a serious problem here. And just like it gets back to the revenue, like I said, the second it became clear that places were closing, people held on to their checkbook, and they just said, okay, well, we're not going to pay for anything right now because we're not sure what's going to happen here. You know, we got to pull all of our advertising, and we got to, you know, we're not going to pay for the advertising we've already bought.
Right. Okay.
And so because newspapers tend to be, you know, so marginal anyway, we felt that impact immediately. So I was the first business in the community stepping up very early to say, hey, there's an immediate issue here that is an emergency. So I don't know if I'm not making a long story short, I'm making a long story long, but so I pushed to get this in front of the committee, and I pushed for them to hear it right away ahead of their April meeting, because if I had missed this cycle, I would have had to wait until May. And it's like, hey, I'm not going to survive until May if something doesn't change. I need to get this in front of the city now. And so I don't know, because I pushed or because I think they were just flabbergasted that anybody could be in that serious of a situation that quickly. They just completely poo-pooed it and turned me down.
Yeah.
But that generated a lot of sympathy and a lot of discussion in the community about the importance of the newspaper.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that was something that you had reported on, like the fact that you didn't get this grant, but you did get it over here. And so maybe, I mean, that's being transparent. I like that.
Well, it was awkward. I mean, because at the same time, we were also advocating for them that, okay, at the same time I pitched this thing that we proposed, which was going to help other businesses, I pitched to them that they should be coming up with a mini grant program to help all businesses, not just our business. And so then that idea started being discussed, and now there is a forgivable loan program that
that's what this is. Forgivable loans.
Yep. So now, this week, all of the Crosby businesses are eligible to apply for this, and it's been a, you know, I mean, we've both advocated for it and could benefit from it, and also, like, as business owners, don't really agree with how this is being implemented, but it is what it is. At least they're trying to do something now. But it's so interesting that in the town, another town, you know, 50 miles from here, where we also have a newspaper, I made the exact same pitch about the ad credits and the subscriptions. And they couldn't see their way clear to do the subscription portion of it. They just felt that wasn't an appropriate use of economic development funds. But they totally got the ad credit idea. They totally got it. And I have had a blast in the last week contacting owners and hearing from owners that I've reached out to basically say to people, hey, here's $500 to promote your business. How do you want to use it?
That's that's a fun conversation. Yeah, that's a good call. I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is not only creating an opportunity for them, it's helping my business survive. It's creating goodwill. And I'm saying to these people, you know what? Put something in your ad that makes people mention it, or a coupon or a special deal for mentioning the Tioga Tribune or whatever. Use this as a marketing test to prove to yourself the value of newspaper advertising.
Nice.
And a couple of these people have never advertised with us.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So potentially growing the base, not just maintaining. I like it.
So I mean, it's really a growth. It's really, you know, that classic so-called win-win situation. Why the Crosby Group couldn't get that, I don't know. But you know, it's like they'll give me up to $5,000 for me to pay my bills, but they won't approve $5,000 for me to extend as ad credits to other merchants on Main Street.
That's strange. That's not really consistent.
No, but I don't know. There's a lot of politics involved in it, and
for sure,
it's been in some ways it's been like the ugliest time of all, because you know, there have been people on Facebook saying things about, you know, our business, and of course, you know, with this polarized politics right now, plays into it. You know, all the fake media, you know, fake news, the credibility issues that, that are going on nationally, that has played into it too. Right. So it's been incredibly gratifying time, but also an incredibly distressing time to see reflected back at you how poorly some people view what we do. But the positive has far out. I mean, as time goes on, the positive, it has far outweighed the negative. But it started out as really us sort of getting attacked, and then all these people coming to say, "Oh no, this is important. We have to pay attention."
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that must mean so much. I know I would have a hard time. I would always focus on the negative, probably more than the positive. But when the numbers are just so overwhelming, I hope that you can just focus on the positive message, because that's who you're doing this for. I really appreciate that story, because it just reminds me of these countless examples. I've been interviewing, I think it's been like 4 or 5 publishers in the last 2 weeks that have all had a unique approach to donations or grants, getting back to the local business. And it's just like the money is just flowing in the community to help everyone. And somehow it's all synergistic. And everyone is just stepping up, and their true colors are being shown, on both sides. So that's really helpful. Now, I wanted to just circle back really quick and make sure that we hit that editorial that you were talking about at the beginning, Carrie. Do we want to highlight that a little bit more and talk about? Do you remember which article that was?
Right there, it's the letter to the editor.
It is the letter to the editor one. Okay, got it.
And it's probably about halfway down, maybe.
And what are we looking for again? As like
a community service.
Okay. Right, making the argument that we're not just like every other business on Main Street. Not that every business isn't valuable, but that we're something more than just a business. We're an institution that serves the community. And so that was, and I've got another letter in that'll be published today that's very similar, in that she basically makes the argument that, can you imagine Crosby without the Journal? And she starts listing, no obituaries, no city minutes, no pictures from the school program, no sports, no city government news. And she just lists all these things. And it's like, what holds the town together once you can't share that stuff? And you might find some of it on Facebook, but it isn't going to be in any format that you can digest in a realistic amount of time, or even find in many cases.
Right. Another publisher mentioned also that if you're going to find anything really worthwhile and truthful on Facebook, you have to follow 13 dozen different people just to locate this stuff. It's not like you can find it all in one place if Facebook is your sole source of information.
Right. And that gets back to the educational piece too. And I guess, like you say, all these things kind of come together at the same time, and they form this plan. When what I realize now is that, as a newspaper industry, we should have been really digging into the schools 5 years ago to say, to teach. This is why you need newspapers, and not that we haven't had newspaper and education, programs all over the country for a long time, but we really need to hit this piece now to educate these kids and their parents that now it isn't just whether you maybe want to take advantage of a newspaper once in a while, but that if you don't support this, it's not going to be here in the future. Period.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think those conversations were always so superficial. It was just like, oh yeah, I don't, kids don't pick up the print edition. They read everything online. But it's just like, none of that matters. The information needs to be covered by someone in the community in an organized way that's dedicated to this. there's no algorithm that's going to pull together a bunch of random Facebook posts and make sense of what's happening in a community. It's not going to happen. And there's, who knows what those actual sources are? It's all over the place.
Yeah.
So,
and it's difficult.
Unverified information. Mm-hmm.
It's difficult because it's no one person's job to save newspapers. And so it's really easy for every individual to say, yeah, but I can't deal with that. I've got my own problems and I got more important things to do. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to see quite a lot of newspapers fail before people really, before a wide swath of people get behind this. I was just having a conversation with a district legislator this morning and was trying to appeal to him to, make a case to the state government that, hey, we're carrying the water here. We're covering the governor's press conference every day, and we're trying to share this public health information. And now we're talking about opening up the state, and the social distancing is going to become even more important. And the state has not placed a penny of advertising in any newspaper. Like, how is that even possible? Well, it's just funny because today the North Dakota Department of Commerce made a huge advertising buy to put a full page color ad in every single newspaper in the state with the announcement of their reopening plan.
Okay.
And that's huge and appreciated. Yeah. But the reality is that it's not a one and done. If we're going to be engaged in this different lifestyle and economy for a year or more, they're going to have to keep that kind of support coming if they want to have a vehicle of validated, objective news. Sure. Because otherwise, they won't. They can put it on their Facebook page, and good luck how many people see that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So they haven't really said what the plan is long term. They've just given you this one ad, and that's all at this point. Okay.
That's all we know. I mean, and like I say, I'm not ungrateful for it, but it's a couple $1,000s, to our paper for our two papers that we can certainly use. But if we're gonna, keep on this course now, like I say, for months, and be trying to recover when all of our advertisers are hurting too. The state and the federal government needs to, I mean, there's not been a single dime of federal advertising money that's come to our state.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I think I've seen NNA advocating for that, or there's somehow reporting on it. I saw something.
Well, actually, 75% of the senators signed a letter asking for that.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a pretty solid majority. Well, we'll see what happens there. I just think so much of this is just like you said, so much happening at once that not everything can be a priority. But the hope is that this is a priority in their mind, and we'll hear from them soon. But until then, we got to just do it for ourselves. Support locally.
I mean, I saw this coming. I saw the need coming to ask for donations and to go towards more of a nonprofit model. I mean, that's been on my mind and as a direction that we're going to be going through in the future. But I thought this was 3 to 5 years from now, not tomorrow.
Right. Literally. I know it. It's
I know I said to you 2 years ago, when we started talking, I talked about the need to get our subscriptions closer to $100 a year than $50 a year, and have known that I need to keep pushing that membership cost higher and higher and higher because the advertising is going down. And so this has been the donation page has been a really interesting exercise also to see that, okay, a lot of the people that have just given me $100 as a donation, they just renewed in February for $50.
Right. Okay.
So what does that tell you about their willingness to contribute a like amount, just like you would to, National Public Radio or public broadcasting radio, I don't think it's that foreign a concept, and I think that's what we're going to have to do more of.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, NPR does those whatever it is, quarterly donation drives, but we can do it 24/7. Just kind of keep it there. I mean, have you thought about? So let's just get back to some of the details of exactly how you're promoting this. I really like what you did here. I suggested this to another publisher. So at the end of every article, you have this message that has links to donate or subscribe. Was that your idea?
I think I actually got that from The Guardian.
Okay. Yeah.
The UK.
Yeah, I think I've seen
I think they do that. I think it's maybe a pop-up. But I mean,
yes.
when you read one of their stories, you are confronted with that invitation for anything that you consume from them for free.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen that. They've been doing that for a while. And so that's good. That's what it's all about, is just getting ideas from other publications. And I think this is why, when I saw this earlier, I was thinking, I want to bring up gift subscriptions to her again, because if they are reading this, then they have a subscription, unless it's a free story. So I don't know. That was just my thinking on that.
I think the problem with the gift subscriptions is that, okay, say I have adult children. Do I really know if they have the paper or not? You know, I did think about trying to, along with this kid idea with the school subscriptions, I thought about doing some kind of a promotion with, encouraging grandparents to subscribe their grandchildren, of any age. And so, I mean, I'm mulling that over too, but I think the best vehicle is through the schools, because they would help us get that out there, and then we could also fulfill that educational component that some grant sources need in order to justify the cost. So that's the route that we've ended up going with that.
I'm going to interrupt again. I don't want you to be discouraged from offering that for grandparents. I think that's a great idea. As a grandparent myself, one of my biggest surprises was to see that my grandchildren actually read National Geographic. It's not something they would go and pick up, but when it comes in the mail, it's there. They'll read it.
Yeah.
If it's there, they're going to use it. They're going to read it. I think you'd be surprised with the results.
Yeah, no, and it may be something that we end up doing too. Yeah, there's just, and it's amazing how, out of necessity, creativity is born, and you try to, you don't always solve problems until now I have to solve this problem. I feel like this is just an extension of the whole effort that we've been making since, we made the move to our hometown and got the HTML articles and the optimized for mobile and the auto renewals. This is all part of the same drive. It's just that now it's like it's kicked into overdrive, and all of these little experiments and things we've been trying to do to move towards more of a membership model. Now tomorrow is here, and we need to be changing our revenue model now, not 3 years from now.
Right. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, like literally since I got into the business 10 years ago, people have been talking about all these things that need to happen. And it just hasn't been the priority. So I want to quickly touch on this. It looks like you do send the newsletter out. You use the breaking news broadcast function on articles a good amount, it seems. Is that
we hadn't been. We have been now. We've been doing it a lot. The only thing I wish is that there are some articles that I'd really rather only push out to Crosby people, and there's some that I'd only rather push out to Tioga. And I talked a little bit with Jack about, could we separate those? And he did come up with kind of a way of doing that, but I just haven't had time to dig into that yet, that I just keep sending it to everybody.
So, I see. Okay.
That's the one downfall to the way we're organized with our list, is that, we are so hyper local that there are some things that, that we'll be reporting on in Crosby, like that Spirit Fund stuff that really nobody in Tioga cares about, and vice versa.
I see. Okay. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad he got you some feedback. I mean, I can understand like how changing the way things are done. It seems like now I got to deal with another thing, but hopefully it's not too complicated what he suggested. Actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, while we're on that, I was kind of hoping to ask you, like, just in general, how is the support going with our hometown team, Terry, Jack? I mean, has the responsiveness been good in the last since we last talked?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm very happy, and anytime I don't hear something as soon as I need to, I call Terry, and then she talks to me.
Right. Yeah, that we have options for however you want to get the message through.
I mean, it's usually I hear back right away, but then there's something that's like, okay, I need to know, I do need to have this answer right now, so I'm just going to call. So
sure.
And that's been fine. And if I do lose my newspapers, I would love to come work for you guys. I don't know what I'd do for you, but
oh yeah,
but we all get along so well.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. No, you're one of our favorites. You're doing it so well. I mean, your site looks so professional, and I just love how you're making use of all the plugins. One thing I was going to say here is just an idea, like I like to throw out in these meetings. We can further customize this to maybe run either ads or just a button. Put a button up here for donate. In the newsletter, just to get it in one more place if you wanted to.
Oh, that's an idea.
Just an idea. Right. We could have a donate button, subscribe, or whatever, rather than just click here to read. Maybe it's time to change this because people have been seeing this same header for a year plus now. If we change it, it'll get attention, from these people that are opening this newsletter, which let's see how it is doing. 32% is an excellent open rate. And 16% click-through. That's really good. So people are engaged with the newsletter. I think you would get some clicks there, from an ad. And even if it's not a business, we could just promote ourselves,
Yeah, that's an idea.
Okay.
So I would have no idea as far as advertising, what to suggest anybody pay for anything like that. But as far as the subscribe, and I think that a subscribe button, even though this is going to a lot of people who aren't actually subscribing anymore, I think that would confuse the people who are subscribers if there was a subscribe button on it.
Okay.
But the donate button works for everyone.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I think if we could get that on there, I think that would be really good.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want us to just go forward with that, or do you want to think about it and let us know how you want it to look, or you want us to just put something together?
I mean, I think if you could actually just use that same button basically. But, before we do that, I really should update that copy because it doesn't make sense anymore now that I think about it, now that the paywall's up. So I should change that a little bit.
Page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, I can't read it on my phone, but it says something about if you're reading this for free, you should really think about subscribing, and that needs to be updated.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, before we ramp up the promotion of this page, no problem. Just either change it or give us the new wording. We'll update that, and then we can get a button like this on the newsletter. Okay, very cool. All right. Well, we'll let you go. We'll talk to you again, soon. I'll follow up on that live thing. And again, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Good to talk to you guys.
Have a great day. Yeah, likewise. Yep. Always. Talk to you later.